It is open line night, and we are glad you're with us. We're talking politics coming off, the political conventions over the past 2 weeks. And Dr. Thomas Schwartz, a political science professor at Vanderbilt, is our guest tonight, answering lots of questions and keeping things in perspective for us. And I want to get right to the phone calls. I love when you call in this much. Thank you for being part of the show. We have Warren on the line. Hi, Warren.
Hi, how are you doing?
Great. Go ahead.
Well, I'd like to speak about the economy. I know that there was a caller earlier who said that her personal situation had improved because Trump was president. I think this is a deja vu all over again situation. I think people forget that when the Republicans came into power and Obama left office, that when Obama came into office, he inherited the mess the Republicans left for him, and we were almost in a depression. Now, we recovered from that because of the Democrats, because of their good policies. And one fact that kept coming up in the convention was that Obama's administration created more jobs in the last 3 years of his administration than Trump has created in the first 3 years of his. So I don't see how, and not only that, but when he was running, he promised to take care of and bring down the deficit, and he increased it terribly before the pandemic even hit. Now the pandemic has hit, it's gotten worse, and we need more money, but we have a national debt that is about the same as our GDP. How can they take credit for a good economy? That's my question.
Okay, great. Thank you, Warren, very much. Let's go back to that jobs. This is something we hear in almost every election, the push and pull between, no, the Republicans did it, no, the Democrats did it, and they inherited this. What's the truth, Dr. Schwartz?
Well, I don't think I can pronounce the truth here. What I can do is say a lot of it has its perspective, and certainly before the pandemic hit, the economy was going quite strongly, and the unemployment rate was down. The caller is correct that the Obama administration inherited a very difficult economy, and over its 8 years, it did bring the unemployment rate down and create a lot of jobs. In a lot of ways, presidents are given more credits for the economy than they deserve, and more credit and more criticism for when it goes bad than they deserve. Both when it goes well and when it goes, they don't probably deserve that, but these are effects of larger and almost global trends that are affecting the economy. My own sense is that, in this particular case, the Trump administration did have a fairly effective line up until March about the strength of the economy, and now it has to rely on the idea that somehow it would bounce back faster than the Democrats. The Democrats do tend to provide more regulations, that was the earlier caller mentioned, than the Republicans, but that also has benefited Penny as well. My own sense is that no matter who's elected, there's going to be economic problems connected to the pandemic, and it'll be a challenge for either one would face real challenges in restoring the economy.
All right, let's go to Wade now. Wade, you're a part of the show. What's your comment? Are you with me, Wade?
Hello?
Hi, go ahead.
Yes. Hey, I just want to comment about Benghazi. I hear it brought up a lot about how Hillary Clinton failed in Benghazi, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Democrats proposed extra security, and it was denied by the Republicans. But my point is that it seems that, in my opinion, the Republican Party is the party with money. They've got the majority of the people with money. And when they are in power, they seem to want to starve the economy so that we'll regret voting in a Democratic president. I remember when Obama came into office and he tried to get the stimulus started, but he was facing a whole lot of opposition for the funding. Even with Obamacare, they was defunding Obamacare, and I just think that it's not great, and I might be out here on a limb on my own, but I think the Republican Party kind of starves the nation of critical things that we need when there's a Democratic president in office.
Okay, I see what you're saying. All right, thank you, Wade, for your comment. Any thoughts, Dr. Schwartz?
Well, it's a challenging thing. I think the both parties we've gotten used to divided government in this country, namely that the president will be of one party and the Congress of another, and the difficulties that creates. And certainly the caller is correct that the Republicans made a lot of problems for President Obama when they regained Congress over things like Obamacare and other issues. But the Democrats, of course, have also stopped many of Trump's initiatives since they've regained control of Congress. It's almost as if Americans have a sort of divided element that they prefer government not to be wholly in control of one party. And so the result is that we often get a sort of inertia and paralysis that we complain about, but we end up voting for.
I did want to ask you, did anything from the conventions that you watched, did anything just shock you that happened?
I've probably gotten past the point of being really shocked. I guess, and some of that has to do with the fact that we have had 4 years of Donald Trump, who has defied a lot of norms in politics, and a willingness to defy a lot of the conventions that used to regulate how presidents behaved, how they spoke, and how they talked about others. So I don't think I was shocked particularly. I mean, it was such an unusual experience, the conventions, in terms of the absence of crowds and the absence of the usual style of the conventions. So I think I was probably focused more on that and less on any of the shock value that was connected to any events.
Let's go back. That's very fair. Let's go back to the phone lines. Pam is on the line. Pam, good evening to you.
Hello.
Hello, go ahead.
Oh, okay. This is Pam.
Go ahead, Pam.
So there's a couple things that I really find offensive in people. One of them is when people see the truth, hear the truth, even know the truth, and yet they will not allow that truth to guide them in the right direction. The second thing is when people know the truth, but they try to paint a picture as though, for example, that the two sides of a subject, there's really no difference. They try to show parallels where there are none. For example, your guest earlier, when you asked him, has he seen the country so divided? And then he quickly went back to 2004, and what he tried to parallel was the fact that there was a war going on, Iran war, and tried to parallel with the war that we have in our own street. That is no parallel. You can't parallel those two. One, the war was in a foreign land, and today we have war in our own streets, and it's because of the guy who snuck into the White House. And anytime you have some person someplace they don't deserve to be, you always get this kind of chaos and madness. It's like having a bull in a candy shop. Everything's going to be destroyed. And secondly, going back to what the gentleman, I think his name was Wade, said, or maybe the guy before that, he was very right on when he said that when the Republicans left office, they left President Obama a mess. And by his determination and good policy and intelligent strategy, he brought us out of that near depression. People were very in bad shape, I know, because I was one of them. And then to say, this gentleman that you have on saying, well, you know, before the pandemic, Trump had done this, thus and so, and the economy's going well. No, the economy already had momentum, and it was going well because of what Obama had done. And I think the people in the country who are sound mind and good sense, and they want to do what is right, they will not repeat the mistake of 2016. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. I want to talk to you, Dr. Schwartz, about the call to get people out to vote, and even the chaos that's created in a lot of different ways when it comes to mail-in voting, and talk about, you know, we always hear at every election, right? You know, we got to get more people registered to vote and get them to the polls. Right. But there is a greater sense of urgency, I think, this year than what I have ever seen in my voting life.
I think particularly the Democrats feel that their defeat in 2016 stemmed from the fact that their voters didn't turn out. And so I do think they have made this a strong priority to get their voters out, to make sure that voting access is as accessible as possible. And I think that Donald Trump has in some ways tried to stand in the way of that, occasionally by suggesting voter fraud and all of these sorts of things. So I do think this is an aspect of how the parties envision how they can win. And I think the Democrats in particular believe that they can win if they can turn out their voters more than the Republicans do, who I think are more willing to bet on the idea that many Democrats won't vote and that they can win that way.
It's interesting that the president has already said that this could be the most tampered with election. You can't trust the results, and he could very well win. And then what?
Yes.
Then you say, no, this is completely legit.
Well, he said something similar in 2016, though. He said he wouldn't accept the results in 2016. So this is not unusual. I do want to say that I didn't mean to parallel the violence in the streets with the war in Iraq in 2004. I was suggesting the idea of the coronavirus more as a sort of example of how the Democrats are arguing that the Republicans are responsible for those deaths in the way in which some of the polarization in 2004 about deaths caused by the war in Iraq was also used as an attack against the president. And that's, I'm not making a judgment call on that. I'm just saying that in both cases you're talking about an intense polarizing issue, and that's what that you had asked me whether we were ever divided, and we have been divided in the past. That's all I was trying to get across.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. Kate, Peggy, Jean, James, I know you're on the line. We're going to get to you right after this. Stay with us.